Pendaftaran ini boleh dibuat melalui Sign Up with Microsoft ataupun Facebook. Untuk lebih senang lagi, kita masukkan email, kata laluan dan nama penuh kita. Setelah selesai mengisi maklumat, jangan lupa klik pada ruang petak kosong seperti yang ditunjukkan. Kemudian, tekan butang Get Start.
Terima kasih kerana telah menonton program Sarawak Festival pada hari ini. Sertai kami pada esok hari untuk menyaksikan program-program lain yang akan berlangsung sepanjang Sarawak Festival 2021. Layari laman sesawang Sarawak Festival untuk jadual program serta maklumat lanjut. Jangan lupa juga untuk sentiasa mengikuti dan like media sosial rasmi Pustaka Negeri Sarawak di Facebook, YouTube dan Instagram kami untuk mengikuti perkembangan dan pelbagai aktiviti yang akan diadakan.
Hai semua, hari ini saya akan berkongsi tentang cara mendaftar e-pembelajaran Reading Seed dan langkah menyertai modul pembelajaran. Untuk langkah pertama, buka enjin carian seperti Google dan type Open Learning Reading Seed. Kemudian, klik pada pautan paling atas. Selepas itu, klik pada butang Join Now. Untuk langkah kedua, di sini anda akan diberi pilihan sama ada menggunakan Microsoft, Facebook atau akaun email. Tapi sebaiknya saya sarankan anda untuk menggunakan akaun email. Langkah ketiga, anda diminta untuk mengisi butiran lengkap sebelum memulakan modul pembelajaran. Pembelajaran ini mengandungi 12 modul. Setiap modul haruslah dilengkapkan dan anda juga harus membuka setiap audio yang disertakan dalam modul. Selepas habis setiap modul, anda dikehendaki untuk memberi komen. Untuk langkah keempat, setelah selesai semua modul e-pembelajaran, anda dikehendaki untuk mengisi maklumat penilaian. Akhir sekali, anda akan memperolehi e-sijil setelah selesai semua modul e-pembelajaran. Kiranya anda mempunyai anak berumur 3 tahun ke bawah, anda boleh menuntut Kids Reading Seat di mana-mana cawangan pustaka yang berdekatan. Anda dikehendaki untuk membawa sijil dan buku rekod kesihatan anak untuk tuntutan. Selamat mencoba!
Hai, selamat datang ke kursus e-pembelajaran pandai. Saya Franklin Adagiman, merupakan fasilitator untuk program pandai. Untuk kali ini, saya ingin mengajar anda bagaimana untuk menyertai kursus pandai secara atas talian. Jom! Langkah pertama, buka enjin carian seperti Google dan kemudian buat carian pandai Open Learning.
Okay, okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera. Selamat pagi everybody and a very good morning to those who are joining me this morning on MASA e-forum. So today we're going to highlight on the Sarawak State Budget Top 2022 in collaboration with Economic Planning Unit. Foremost, I would like to introduce to our members and our members to be our panelists, our distinguished panelists this morning. With us today, this morning is Mr. Albert Lee, PricewaterhouseCoopers partners from KL, and in fact he's a local Sarawakian, and also Associate Professor Dr. Puah Ching Hong, CEO Unimas Business School, University Malaysia Sarawak, and And also our another distinguished guest here, distinguished panelist here is Datuk Abdul Latif Haji Abu Seman, Director General of Malaysian Productivity Corporation, MPC. And also another distinguished guest I would like to introduce is Yang Bahagia Datuk Richard Wee, President of Federation of Chinese Association Sarawak. So all these members are all happy to be here to share their views and opinions on what they think of what Sarawak budget, state budget 2022 should be. Just to share with you the objective of this webinar is basically to give information to the public on the state budget 2022 formation, and also to meet MASA mission as a platform for public and private sector to exchange and contribute ideas, feedbacks, and proposal for the preparation of state budget 2022. So I would like to share with the members today that the format that I'll be conducting this webinar session is very simple and cordial, in the sense that I will give an opportunity to all the panelists for 10 minutes, not more than 10 minutes, for everybody to voice their opinion and views on what they would like to say. Then after that, we go another round, and I will be seeking opinion again. And then after that, we will we go for Q&A. So let me start with the synopsis of this webinar session that we have. Sarawak government basically has unveiled a long-term development plan, namely the post-COVID-19 strategy, development strategy 2030, or commonly known as PCDS 2030, on the 22nd of July this year, with the objective to propel Sarawak towards a developed state by 2030, where everyone enjoys economic prosperity, inclusivity, and also sustainable economy and sustainable environment. PCDS 2030 program and projects will be implemented under the 12th Malaysia Plan. There is from 2021 to 2025, and the 13th Malaysia Plan, there is 2026 to 2030. So the medium term, it is a medium-term development plan, basically. So the state budget 2022, which is next year, comprises the operating expenditure, that is the OPEX, and the capital development expenditure, that is the CAPEX. So the formation of the state budget 2022 is expected to address the current challenges, especially to cushion the impact of COVID-19. To the socio-economic well-being of people and business community, as well as to implement a development program and project under the 12th Malaysia Plan to support the PCDS 2030. So in this connection, MASA, or Institute Management Sarawak, is conducting this webinar to gather information from the expert and also from the public to their expectation or suggestion for the formation of Sarawak State Budget 2022. So, to get the ball rolling, I would like to give some overview of our economy, or the global, national, and Sarawak economic situation and prospect. So basically, 2020 has been an unprecedented challenge year as COVID-19 disrupt business and affected people's livelihood across the globe. Pandemic has significantly weakened the global growth to a negative 3.3%, and the Malaysian economic performance to contract by 5.6% in 2020, and projected to recover this year. As other parts in Malaysia, Sarawak economy is estimated to contract between 7.1% ataupun negative 7.1% growth in last year, 2020, due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The economy is expected to rebound between 3% to 4% in 2021 this year, due to improvement in global economy and world trade. So in 2020, world trade is, the trade is about minus 8.3%. In 2021, we expect it to be about 9.7%. Economic activities will gain momentum with the improvement in external market and commodity prices. However, the downside risks remain even if we succeed in containing this pandemic. There is still some downside risk, I think. And then this is just the overview. For that reason, the state government took the initiative to form the SEAC, or Sarawak Economic Action Council, with the idea brainchild of Yang Amat Berhormat Ketua Menteri Sarawak. Basically was launched, I think, was actually started 6 May 2020, and formulated the PCDS to propel the economy towards high income. So basically, this is some of the proactive plan that the state have taken lah. So and this we would like to share with the public and the members of MASA and members to be. Hopefully, some of you would like to join MASA later on, and for that, it is very pertinent that the public is made known of all this positive effort by the government to rejuvenate the economy, the way I look at it. And for that, that is my brief introduction of the economic situation of the global, Malaysia, and at the same time Sarawak. So for that, I would like to start this webinar more lively, in the sense that we get a real opinion from the real people on the ground. So this includes practitioners like Mr. Albert Lee from PwC, and academicians like Dr. Pua from UNIMAS, and senior administrator like Dr. Abdul Latif from MPC, and the NGOs like the Sarawak Chinese Association, like Dr. Richard Wee. So for that, I would like to invite Albert Lee, partner of PwC, to give his views. Okay, over to you, Albert.
Thank you, Dr. Mohamad, for introduction, and good morning to everyone. First of all, hope everyone is safe. Now, well, if I look at what has been happening globally in the last 18 months since the pandemic started, I think the word that you used, Dr. Mohamad, was unprecedented, right? No one has experienced before. We are almost 20 months into the pandemic. And a lot of reflections, I think a lot of articles and news being written about the entire pandemic. So I think what I'm going to cover is really to give that global and national perspective. And obviously, the distinguished panelists we have today will talk about their respective field as well. PwC being a global organization, we operate in 160 countries. We do have some views in terms of the economy, the government, and general businesses. So I'm going to touch upon 3 things this in my opening remarks. One is about the economic challenges that we see globally in 2022. And also dovetail into what are the budget that in the state budget 2022 can focus on. And the third topic I'm going to talk about is climate change. I think this is the word that we hear it very, very often. It is a very topical and very important topic for us to be aware of. And obviously the state government has a plan to address it, as I understand from the post-COVID development strategy. Big picture, like we are 20 months into pandemic. It impacts people's life and livelihood. We'll start with the somber news, right? 4.5 million people died because of the pandemic. That is equivalent to a small nation population, right, in the planet Earth. That is how severe it is. In Malaysia, we have about 16,000 fatality, and it's counting, right? It is very somber, and life has been lost. We miss our loved ones, and not being able to say goodbye. It is real, right? And we're still grappling with the whole thing. That is obviously, it impacts every country around the world. It is a health crisis. But for today's discussion, obviously, there are a lot of economic focus, right? I think Dr. Mohamad, you alluded to, globally in 2020, GDP contracted 3.3%, Malaysia 5.6%. But if you ask me, how about the many countries around the world? In fact, if I could remember, in 2020, in the entire world, only one country is a positive GDP. Hazard a guess? Is the China, the Middle Kingdom, we will call it. They have a 2.3%. The rest all in negative territory. That's how severe it is from an economic impact. Livelihood, jobs. 500 million jobs lost globally. In Malaysia, employment rate is 5.3%. It is the highest in the last 30 years. That goes to show the severity. Government debt has ballooned, right? If you look at the Malaysia government debt as a proportion of GDP is about 60%. It is high. There are countries above 100%. Why? Because they need to borrow to help the people, giving financial packages. Those are the real challenges that the governments are grappling with globally, from fiscal, be able to sustain, the aid to the people, the loss of jobs, and the health crisis. So it is real, right, from an economic sense. How about students? There are 1.6 billion students not able to go to school, have to revert to home-based learning. How about those people lost the job? Upskilling is needed, right, to be adapt to the new world. If you ask me, what is on reflection, right? I think even within PwC, when we spoke with our network officers around the world, one thing that came through is the word about equality. Let me explain the word equality. The pandemic hits everyone. It doesn't matter you are the most powerful country, the most powerful person, or the man on the street. It hits everyone. The second point I want to mention, right, it's a bit of a lighter moment, right? We all have lockdown. We are hoping that we can go to the beach. If you go to the beach, they are high tide and they are low tide. Just imagine, right? What happened during low tide? What do you see? You see everything. You see nice seashell, nice coral, or you see rubbish that being washed out to the shore. What does it mean? This pandemic exposes countries, governments, businesses. Look at it. Certain countries seem to be handling pandemic a lot better than the other. In terms of getting the vaccine, in terms of rolling out the vaccine, in terms of going back to normal. There are certain countries today are still struggling to get a vaccine supply. Forget about rolling out. Where is Malaysia? We are relatively better. That is a very bright, thing that's happening in our country. So what does it mean? It exposes the effectiveness of the government. It is a challenge. And look at the strength of the economy. It exposes the weaknesses of the economy. If the economy is very dependent on tourism, it hits the hardest. The economy that is not efficient, a lot of inefficiency, also hit the hardest because they can't get the act together. What does it mean? Looking ahead in terms of prospect. COVID-19 offers a reset. What does it mean? A reset being that it exposes all our pluses and the minuses, forces us to rethink how can we do it better? How can we be relevant in the next 10 or 20 years? That's what it offers. But there is one very important determinant, we call it fortnight, is vaccination. The global recovery, if you ask economists around the world, is it a V shape, very fast, or a long U, or an L? It could not recover. Some of the consensus is it could be a K-shaped recovery. What does it mean, right? Pandemic hits everybody the same, but some countries are able to recover a lot faster. The upper quadrant of the K and the lower quadrant. It hinges on the rollout of the vaccination. The faster the country can get to almost full vaccination, the herd immunity, we call it, the better chance for the country to back to normalcy. Malaysia, where are we? I think we are in a good position. That is a very important criteria. Yeah. So then if we look at Sarawak, for example, where is Sarawak? I think Sarawak probably has the highest vaccination rate in the country. Right? So that is broadly in terms of how we see the global perspective. I'm going to quickly, I'm also conscious of time, Dr. Mohammed, I'm probably spend
please.
10 minutes to talk about the next thing in terms of the state budget focus. If you look at typical any budget, right, you have what we call it a OPEX and development expenditure. OPEX is the day-to-day running of the government, and the development expenditure. Typically in the budget, right, there are a couple of components that we should obviously think about in this environment from our perspective. One, it is about some of the immediate relief. We call it the BKSS in the case of Sarawak. Why it is important? Pandemic is like the house on fire. First, got to put off the fire first, giving the relief, the aid to the people to get by first, before we start to think about rebuilding a house. I think that component needs to be looked at. I think that would be my first remarks. The second remark is around some of the critical infrastructure for the rural communities that is in need because of this COVID-19. And that priority should be look to that direction as well. The third one, allow me to spend a bit more time. I think it's an important one, right? I think if I look at the PCDS blueprint launched by the YAB Chief Minister about a month ago, he talks about 7 strategic trusts. One of the key part which resonated with me very strongly, I'm sure Dr. Richard will have his view later from a business perspective, is the ease of doing business. Why? If we were to build the economy, we need to be able to have the investor comfortable investing in Sarawak and the domestic investor happy to grow, right? To put in money into projects. So the ease of doing business is very important, right? A very simple example. Investor wants to invest in a country, in a state, for example. What do I need? I need land. Can I get the land easily? Secondly, is how time it takes to approve my documentation. If it's sufficient, good. But is that all? They'll ask, how about infrastructure? Are there roads built? Are there basic amenities like water, electricity? Is that all? No. How about the port? Is the port efficient? Right, for me to export out. So there's an entire ecosystem in terms of spending needs to be looked at. So from our perspective, it's very important that having the ecosystem approach in terms of the development expenditure should be focusing on areas that would generate the most economic impact, bearing in mind what I think the investors are thinking. I think that's an important bit, right? So I would sort of, to us, that is an important part to attract investors here. So that is on in terms of broadly some of the how we see the state budget spending, right? From just some ideas, right? The third area is about global warming. Global warming is a key part of the equation. I think it is real now, and there are a lot of what do we call it, literature out there to talk about the impact of 1.5 Celsius increase in temperature. What is the impact? Just one simple example I will share with you. I think it's been researched and reported widely. If you know a place called Greenland, Greenland is the largest island in the world. Is where Antarctic is the 3 times the size of Borneo Island. 80% of Greenland is covered by ice. So there's a study done, a 1.5, 1.6 Celsius increase in temperature would then lead to the Greenland would start to melt. What is the ultimate consequence of that? If the entire Greenland get melted, it will be a 7-meter rise in sea level. What does it mean? We're not even talking today, right? How many land and people will be submerged underwater? It is significant. And I'm conscious of time. From what I do notice is that I think in the PCDS document, the state government is going to adopt a sustainable economic blueprint. And talking about blue economy, talking about green economy, and there are certain policies being put in place. I think it is certainly a step in the right direction. I will just conclude with one point. I think it is important that the plan needs to have something very concrete. The plan needs to have clarity. And the last thing is that I think the plan needs to be practical as well for people to get their buy-in. Yeah. With that, sorry, Dr. Mohammed, I'm sort of overshoot my time. I'm trying to summarize as much as I can. Thank you. I should defer my, the rest to the distinguished panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Albert, for a very insightful introduction and overview of the whole. You give a very good perspective or understanding of where we're going to move afterward. Because I structured this webinar such a way that from general to mid and to actual, which is Dr. Richard will be more on the implementation of aspect of this. So next, I would like to invite Dr. Far, from CEO of Unimas Business School, to give from the academic point of view and from the economist point of view. So over to you, sir.
Okay, good morning. Dr. Abdullah, can you hear me?
Yeah, very good. Very clear.
Okay. So first of all, I would like to say thank you very much to this Institute of Management Sarawak, MASA, for inviting me to join this forum on the topic of state budget talk 2022. So the topic given to me is about the Sarawak development perspective. So I would like to talk on the background of the state economy first, because there's always a question that the state economy is very much dependent on natural resources. So what should we do during this pandemic time or post-pandemic time? So again, I would like to give this quick background that what Dr. Abdullah did just now about the Malaysia economics and Sarawak economics. In 2019, the real GDP growth in Malaysia is 4.4%, but last year it was negative 5.6%, and for the state it was 2.8% in 2019, and it was negative 7.1%. If you look at the last about 4 to 5 years, on average, the state this real economic growth rate is about 2.9%, and for the federal government is about 4.8 to 4.9% in the last 4 to 5 years before COVID. Okay, so
recording in progress.
Talking about, okay, what will be the next whether this year will, the GDP forecast and the next year GDP forecast. Actually, while there are a lot of this forecasting has been done recently, and the latest second quarter, this economic report from the central bank is stated for forecast, okay, that the GDP growth, it will be about 3 to 4% for the country. So if you look at the past trend, that means the state GDP growth might be around 3%. Okay. Now we look at the Sarawak sectorial GDP. In 2020, the agriculture sector contributed about 12%. The mining and quarrying sector contributed about 22%. In total, it's about 34%. So that is one of the reasons why we say the state economics is very dependent on natural resources. Then, what are these challenges and prospect for Sarawak economics during this pandemic time? I would say is to survive first. To survive first. We try to survive first. Help to create job, to maintain the industry. You need to have an investment. Only that the industry, the factory is operating, they can operate. Then the employment can be maintained. Then the economy can move further. That's why the policymaker or the government, they play a very important role. But this is not easy. I look at the latest statistic report from the Health Director General, Tan Sri Dr. Noor Hisham. It stated that Sarawak, during the period of 16 to 29 August, recorded among the highest these Delta variant cases, among the highest in the state in Malaysia. So it's very uncertain actually. If this pandemic issue cannot be handled well, it will definitely bring adverse impact to the economics. According to the ASEAN Development Outlook 2021, it stated that the private consumption in Malaysia has been contracted by 2.5% on a year-to-year basis in 2020 due to job and income losses. So unemployment rate increased. For the case of the state of Sarawak, so this unemployment rate has been increased from 3.1% in 2019 to 4.3% in 2020. So I like to say one of these critical sector will be the tourism sector. Okay, so we are talking about diversify our economics. We want to change the economics from resource based to services sectors or manufacturing. So we need to understand what is the current scenario. I would like to use tourism sector as one of the examples. Due to COVID-19, the total visitors arrived to Sarawak had declined sharply by 74% from around 4.7 million in 2019 to about 1.2 million in last year. Okay, since the implementation of this MCO, the international visitors have declined by nearly 83% in 2020. Same happens to our domestic visitor has been reduced about 68% in last year 2020. As of July 2021, according to this statistic from the Ministry of Tourism, Art and Culture, Sarawak. Okay, Sarawak only received about 74,000 total tourists, and this international tourists is about 11,000 only. So all in all, this statistic indicated that this tourism industry, including other service industry, is far from recovering due to this pandemic. before COVID-19, the tourism sector contributed about 8%, nearly 9% to the state GDP. Last year, I think it was about 2% plus only. Of course, the job dropped a lot. Okay, so that is the current challenges that we are facing. I look at this Sarawak post COVID-19 development strategy 2030. It has been highlighted that there are these 6 main economic sectors with 7 and others. So these are tourism sector, services sector, manufacturing sectors. They are the among the key sectors that has been highlighted by the state government, which is very good. Okay, because if you want to reach so-called developed status, by looking on the experience from those developed countries, in general, their services sectors contributed about 60% or even more to the state GDP. However, currently, the services sector in Sarawak, the contribution to state GDP is about 34-35% in the last few years. So after this pandemic, or we say the strategic during the post-pandemic time, should focus more, to me, should focus more on this services sector and manufacturing sector. Okay, then the other question is about what should we do to diversify these economics, the state economics. Again, I would like to put the statement from Sarawak post-COVID-19 development strategy. Okay, it says you need to be away from oil and gas related activity. Then we move to domestic production and trade. Okay, and we need to try to increase the social economic development. Okay, this has been stated in this Sarawak post-COVID-19 development strategy. Okay, so talking about diversification, I think general understanding will be refer to 2 dimensions, 2 important dimensions of economic diversification. One is a trade, export-import activity, trade diversification, exporting new or better product to a new market. So during pandemic time, it's rather hard for us to explore new market. Your jiran or any country, everyone affected. Okay, only few they were doing good. Okay, the other one is this diversification in the domestic production. So we say diversification of domestic economics. Okay, here again, I would like to emphasize on services sector development and also import substitution industry. Okay, I quote this statement from one of these OECD economics. It stated that if we want to go for this domestic production diversification, okay, what should we do? We need to create a conducive or friendly business environment, not only for this foreign investor FDI, but also for the domestic industry, especially the SMEs. We need to have this good framework policy for innovation, good this macro economy policy, and we should focus on import substitution. You need to improve on this tax system. You need to improve on investment environment. Okay, and if the local industry they can produce something that we import previously, of course it will diversify the domestic industry. It can create job. We need to have an industry. Industry is an injection to the economics. Only when the industry move, the job will come. So this investment and consumption, at the end, it will stimulate the economic growth. It will contribute to tax. I look at these the top 5 exporting countries of Sarawak in the last few years. It ranges from Japan, China, Korea, India, Vietnam. Vietnam is a new top 5 listed in the new top 5 countries. So if you look at these our major trading partner, I would say except from China, these are Japan, Korea, India. Their economic performance is not that good during the pandemic time. Okay, so this is something that we need to think about. Maybe the new market. What are the new products that our industry can produce, and we should look for new market that can help us to grow. And if you look at the exporting products, we are still very much depending on these oil and gas, palm oil, this petroleum. This product contributed more than 60% of the total production. Okay, so the next will be about the target spending area for this Sarawak budget 2022. So what are the most so-called prosperous sectors or the sector that can help to bring greater social and economic impact to the state? To me, we should focus on this services sector, manufacturing sector. At the same time, we still need to maintain the resource center. Okay, again, I wish to use an example from a tourism sector, because this tourism sector actually it can bring a lot of this opportunity of business, not only to the country, in general to the state, to Sarawak, also is a very critical. So we should look at the opportunity and early step for recovery and restart the tourism industry during the pandemic. Provide incentive to promote the domestic tourism and to restore the confidence of the local public. We can start from the local tourism activity first, and to provide this financial incentive help to the domestic industry. Why I say so? Because services sectors actually their multiplier effect is quite big, great. This multiplier effect can help to push up or boost up the economics, the whole economics. And we should also encourage economic growth and structural transformation through this industry liberation, IR 4.0. Okay, by creating conducive environment through digital infrastructure and talent development. The other part is modernizing the agriculture and agro industry. We are talking about food sustainability, food security, and also this food exportation. In Sarawak, we have a huge of this land. It can be used for this productive agriculture product. Then it can be used for exportation to generate income for the state. Then the other issue is to fix the labor skills mismatch. Labor skills. Okay, during pandemic time, people lay off, get fired from the company, they lost their job. So something needs to be done on this part. How to help them? Okay, there are industry that shortage of workers, especially these labor-intensive industry. They need foreign workers. They cannot come in. There are industries that oversupply. That's why I think the training mix analysis need to be conducted.
Okay, so Dr. Pua, very interesting discussion. Yeah. You like to add a few more things, or we continue after this second round?
We continue after this.
Okay, right. Thank you, Dr. Pua. Very interesting also view from an academician, and of course, as I said earlier, that I break this into different stages of economy. So just now, Dr. Pua was talking about Sarawak development perspective, And we invite Datuk Bahagia Datuk Abdul Latif to give his view on technology and productivity in terms of on the aspect of our state budget 2022. Over to you, Datuk.
Thank you, Dr. Muhammad. Very good morning to all my fellow panelists and also our audience which are following on the virtual line. Now, as been mentioned by the moderator, that I'm coming in from a productivity a business organization. All right, our business is in a business of productivity improvement. Now, we have seen the impact of this COVID-19 last year. Productivity growth was at -5.5, right? And it's not something very encouraging. If you want to see that the economy bounces back from productivity perspective, productivity needs to grow not less than 3.7%. Now, we have seen that from a survey that was done by Department of Statistics, right? Department of Statistics that was done somewhere in March last year, a special survey, right? Which really goes into individual behavior on spending. We could see that there was a significant change on daily need spending. Now, from the sample that was collected, almost half of Malaysians say that they buy things online more now compared to months before MCO came into force. Only 1/3 says that they buy less. Now, the fact is that shows that with this restricted movement, we are not able to do things, the usual way and all that. Life still has to go on. I think business also need to operate, continue to operate. But you have to look at how you can still survive and still continue to do things by looking into other methods. And that is where I think is what Dr. Muhammad mentioned. I think technology, is the way to move forward. If I may share with you, in fact, in MPC itself, I would like to talk from experience rather than, I go on conceptual, on rhetoric and all that. We had actually launched MPC Go Digital since January last year in anticipation, for this kind of things to happen. And we use the term, even though the government, coming from the DG, Director General Office of the Public Service, bekerja dari rumah or work from home. But we had already started what we call going digital, MPC going digital. We have already encouraged our staff. They can work from anywhere, they can be productive from anywhere, provided that they have got the gadgets, the equipment, where they can be connected. They will continue to deliver their deliverables, and work can still continue to ensure that we can still serve the rakyat and also the nation. And I found out that when we go digital, the first thing that we realized, we don't need a big space, right? We had actually lean our space. We have closed one of our office. We don't need that big, because when you don't allow people to come and work, and what more in government offices, you're going to have a lot of unused spaces. So some of these spaces we were renting when we went on expansion at one time, and we don't need that because we are paying almost 600,000 over every year. We're able to do that, to cut down. Secondly, as I had mentioned, using technology, we are able to do a much more better outreach. I think as what Dr. Muhammad, you mentioned, session that we had even with the Chief Minister, if you go by the conventional way, how much can your biggest hall accommodate? We run our national convention on the small group activities. Most that we can accommodate is only 2,000, probably 4,000 the most. But we can have even until 80,000. And we have our regional convention at the moment, which is happening. We have by umpteen, of thousands of people attending, and they can go online as long as you got the internet connection, right? You've got the gadget. Now, with this scenario that we are all in at the moment, I think it was also timely, very aptly, the Sarawak government had got what they call this post-COVID development strategy, post-COVID-19 development strategy, I think, which is very aptly, okay, at this time. And that calls for us to think of how we can still continue to survive, we can still continue to carry out our business. The government machinery, the government departments, government services also need to continue, but you will not go far if you are using the old way. All right, under the present circumstances, the physical, distancing, the health protocol that we need to adhere to, the SOP. All right, Albert, do not have to be in Kuching, but we can still have, productive session using technology. This is what technology is all about. Now, in the words of the Chief Minister, if I may quote, he mentioned one of the event. He said that when it comes to translating technological innovations into a real business, technology is relatively easy to come, but it is the talent that is often the limiting factor. Now, we would like to have technology in place. I think some of the technology we can buy. But whether do we have the right talent, all right, to manage the technology, to accommodate, customers' requirement? Changing needs are very dynamic. What more under the present situation? You have to do things, differently. We used to have a convention, conference and roundtable discussion. The conventional way is to have everyone, in their physical presence. But though we don't need that. Of course, we are able to cut down our logistics. We don't need, to have it, at hotels and all that. We are able to cut down even on food and beverage. And then there are a lot of savings that we can do by doing what we are doing at this point of time. Okay. Now, we stand guided. If we were to bounce back to where we were, then we have to do things differently. And to me, productivity is the game changer. We need to bounce back. We are now, minus 5.5 last year. We want to go back to 3.7 at least if you want to be a developed, economy by the year 2030. The same as I think what Sarawak aspires to be. All right, a developed, state by the year 2030. Now, at the same time, while we are talking about productivity as the game changer, I would also like to refer to the Sarawak PCDS, post-COVID development, post-COVID-19 development strategy. I think Albert, you have put it rightly. I think one of the tasks I think the state has given a focus is on ease of doing business. Yes, we can have missions, going all over to bring in investment, to get businesses, to come over to our country. But the first thing I think for investors and businesses when they reach our shore, started with our immigration. Do we have, a situation where we are able to accommodate? Investors, when they invest, they want to build buildings, they want to construct factories. Do you have, a situation or a climate where we are facilitating? Do we have a conducive climate? And we have heard a lot of, feedback coming from many parties, not just foreign investors, foreign businesses, but even local businesses alone. I mean, here in Malaysia, and they are giving feedback. They find it, in many instances, things are very difficult for them to do business. Application of licenses, requirement for registration. Some of the process and procedures are not clear. And the fact is, under the National Anti-Corruption Plan, there is an initiative called, to ensure that we have got, transparency for license application, where the government ministries and the agencies which provide those licenses, they have to make sure that they display the guidelines, and the guidelines must be transparent and accessible. And we did a study and we found out that, yes, I think out of more than 500 over licenses, yes, there are some ministries and agencies that have got clear guidelines, but the guidelines are not displayed in their website. So it's entirely up to the officers, to tell the applicants, you will be at your own whims and fancy to advise the applicants what need to be done. But if you have something which is transparent, everyone can refer and with the same understanding. Now, there were also some guidelines which are available, but it is not efficient. Because some of the guidelines, they were developed, over time, those years, probably 30 years. But with the technology that we have, it doesn't make sense. There's some feedback you are getting, you have to wait for months, 10 months, 11 months. Doing business is about time. Time is money. We need speed. If we are slow, investors, they will go elsewhere. I give you an example, like construction permit at one time in Malaysia, it took 300, on the average of 260 days to get all the required permits to develop, a building. Right? A simple case study that was done by World Bank. But there are some country which only requires less than a month. So if you're an investor coming over, are you going to wait for 260 days? I'm talking about when you have all the information in place. But what about, let's say, if they discover that your information document that's submitted is still, not fully, equipped, it is still not, you have not met certain requirement, and it's going to take longer. There were also cases development of, a private hospital taking 800 over days. Our study, and if you have people coming here to invest, to help us to be a health hub within this region. If they want to be hospitals, if they're taking close to 3 years, are they going to wait? I think if you give me a choice, I would rather keep my money in my fixed account. I earn, rather than. So this, I think that we need to look at. That brings me to the next point: whether do we have a conducive environment that can really support business, to operate. I'm talking about doing business, right? Albert mentioned doing business. Doing business is not just about the moment you start business, you operate, your business, but we are talking about from the day you start your business, your registration. You may want to employ workers. You may not have, some expertise. Is it easy to employ workers, in certain industry where you need to bring some experts, let's say from elsewhere? I mentioned about you may want to construct, your factory. Do we have, regulations which make easy for people, to really develop buildings and all that without compromising, of course, on, safety standards and all that. Third, is our taxes, regime, is it conducive? Do people find, easy, to pay their dues and all that? And does our taxes, is fair and also facilitate people to do business so that they can really grow? Now, remember, if we have this environment, good environment in place, we are talking about, encouraging business to grow. When business is able to grow, then you can create more employment, because when business make profit, it is also something which is good for the country. The government can tax. So I don't believe we should start imposing and, collecting revenue the moment people want to start business. People have yet to start business, and we are putting a lot of charges and all that. I think let business to grow. That's why under the My Digital Initiative, the Malaysia Productive Blueprint, MPC, we have been tasked to ensure that startups, we are able to create, new or to accommodate not less than 5,000 by the year 2023 new startups, in digital, technology business. We want to make sure that, because we need, a digital technology to really support the economy to grow. I have just used, a good example, how we can still continue with our business. And even if I can use some good example, we have got one company, selling fresh milk. Conventional way, they were only able to sell, probably about 300 bottles a day. But with this MCO, COVID, they are not able to do the usual business. They can't have physical contact. Customers are not able to come to their place. So they were using digital. They use website. They do marketing online and all that. And you know what? Because of all these restrictions that they have, because they are creative, they are not able to sell not less than 10,000 bottles a day. You see, sometimes when you are under pressure, you have constraint, that will force your mind to be creative. From 300, conventional way, you have restrictions, so we thought that that's it, we are gone, because we can't do the usual way, but they were creative. They can now sell 10,000 bottles. Another, electrical company, they were not, able to open their outlet, so customers are not able to come in. So again, they were using technology, right? They're doing marketing, taking in, bookings and all that, orders, and their business had grown. They were able to make 90 million a month, which I think before that there was not that much if you use the conventional way. So we have to look at first, I think within the context of Sarawak. First of all, if you want the economy to grow, of course, we need also productivity to grow. I think one of the panelists had mentioned, we need to move away from very much on resource driven. Resources are depleting. I think we have to add more value. Right? More value will come, through different way of doing things. So first, what will be the kind of workforce that the state require? If you're talking about you need a lot of talent on digital competency, I think that should be the way. I think in the words of the Chief Minister, he mentioned, yes, relatively, to have the right technology, it's relatively easier, but getting the right talent, we have to identify. Two, I think the trust that is being mentioned under the PCDS, areas that yield the most economic returns. So I'm sure, as been mentioned, tourism is one area. Now, under our Malaysia Productivity Blueprint, we are looking into empowering the business, all right, to spearhead economic development in their sector. So we have what we call productivity nexus, and we have got productivity champions, which are actually people from that particular sector that lead the productivity improvement. Yes, tourism is the first to be impacted. It's going to be the last, right? To float. But we make sure that while not many things are able to be done, but we want to make sure that tourism still continue to survive. We ensure that we have certain SOP we put into place. We do certification program where many of these outlets are now certified. We started certified what we call adherence to SOP of COVID-19. So when the economy starts to open, we are all prepared. At the same time, the tourism sector led by this productive nexus on tourism, they have also taken this time for the last 1 year to review the pricing strategy, prices of their services and all that, their marketing strategy. That should be the time also that we should be looking at. But what is most important, the moment we're able to bounce back, we are readily prepared. So first, we have to make sure we have the right talent, for the economy or the sector that we're giving emphasis. Two, I think technology is the way to move forward. Okay. Even, let's say, if we open our economy fully, but I think we have invested a lot, technology is the way to move forward. I'm sure a lot of us are going to, it can be a hybrid kind of approach, but I think technology will still be there. Okay. If I may just conclude, what is most important, apart from I mentioned about the right talent, technology, I think the regulatory environment. I think, Albert, you have put it rightly, to do business easily, we need to have the proper regulation. Regulation must be facilitating, not frustrating. And if I may just end up, just to share with you a feedback that we have got, from investor, they have difficulty to build. It is one of the northern states. Okay, I would say it is Kedah. Kedah in Kulim High Tech in Park area. Kulim High Tech Park. Our study shows that they took more than 2 years to get all the required approval to set up a factory. Now, we use the approach of public-private partnership. I think this is the way to move forward. I mentioned about Nexus is industry-driven. We bring every of them together. We set together with the government, technical agencies, evidence-based kind of approach. We bring all the numbers and all that. We start challenging the status quo, and I'm pleased to share with you, we were able to cut down from 2 over years. Now it only takes 10 months. You can go over to Kulim. There is already a factory. Aspen Grove, it is already in operation, and we're going to use that model to be replicated also to all the other districts, the PBTs, the local authority, and we have got also the support of the State Secretary to oversee this initiative. So to conclude, I think for my preamble, we need to have the right talent. We need also to be investing into areas that yield the most economic returns. And of course, digital adoption and execution is the way to move forward.
Okay.
Thank you.
Dato' Latif, your presentation macam goreng pisang panas. A lot of comment and all are very positive and very encouraging. So I think we need to, Dato' Richard Wee, you need to do better than Dato' Latif.
We save the best for last, Dr.
Yeah.
Muhammad.
So after this, we're going to have another round. So basically, I would like Dato' Richard, President of Federation of Chinese Association for Sarawak, to give a view on business and investment from the budget perspective. Over to you, sir. I think you're on mute. Dato', you're on mute, Dato' Richard.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Abdullah. And also all my fellow panelists just now. I think everybody have given their respective perspective with regard to their specialty. We have the academics like Dr. Phua, and we have Albert, who is the professional firm, and we have the government sort of agency like Dato' Abdul Latif, giving all the different ways of thinking about the way forward, really. And I think a lot of the issue that was brought up, either they are from Dr. Phua's side, is more on a statistic side, of which, from my point of view, I would not be able to try to provide that kind of numbers. And from Dr. Latif's side, he has focused on the area of about trying to, actually, the important thing is about the ease of doing business. Yeah. And then I think Albert has given a more global outlook. For me, I think I would like to stick to the state budget side, but because the other issue that I think the other panelists have brought up, especially like Dr. Latif one, we can have another session really, to try to talk about that. How do we try to be more efficient? How do we try to be more easier, more business friendly, and how to cut down the red tapes and bureaucratic processes? I think that is, to me, is quite important, because instead of always try to talk about promoted industry or FDI, I think the ease of doing business must be made available to all businesses within the country, including the locals, because the small, if the big businesses are unable to try to be efficient in trying to get their project off the ground, what more can the small guys on the street can do? So I think if we are able to have a system there whereby it can be transparent, it can be like what Dr. Latif is trying to mention and his experience in Kulin, I think that is something worthwhile exploring, and maybe another session like this. Now, coming back to the topic of the day, I think we are talking about the budget here. I would basically talk about a couple of areas. I think important thing is the economic climate now as a result of this pandemic that we are facing. As you know, a vast population of our rakyat has been adversely affected by the pandemic, and some are more severe than others. And it is, in a way, the responsibility of the government in cases like this, whereby it's really out of a lot of people's expectation and control, both at the federal and state level, to do their best to see whether it can alleviate any unwarranted hardship that is faced by the people. In this respect, I think we have seen, like what Dr. Abdullah has mentioned, we are heartened to note that there are numerous schemes, whether it's federal or state, in a form of grants, program, directly targeted to assist the rakyat. We have the Prihatin, we have the BKSS, and I think the BKSS has gone to the 7th edition, and it has been really periodically improved and expanded to try to cater for the need of the rakyat and also the business community. And I think this will continue to be reviewed over time. and it will look at it as and when it's needed. But coming back to the business climate, the economic climate, I think with the achievement of high vaccination rate that was mentioned earlier, I think many are actually eager to try to normalize their financial situation, and they would like to try to go back to work, And I think at this present moment, if we look at the budget that is forthcoming, I think it should actually be a three-pronged type of thrust. One is we must be COVID focused. I think we still need to talk about the COVID's impact with regard to how it will impact the people, the rakyat, and the economy. So I think the budget somewhat will have to also take that COVID situation into account. If we have to try to talk about going forward after the vaccination, you have to try to live with the COVID, and what are the steps that needs to be taken. I think there may be a lot of health issue or health measures to be taken, and all this can be cascaded down to the local authorities and all that. Now, COVID focus is one area. Number two is the rakyat has suffered. The rakyat has been the biggest receiving end of the brunt. Maybe a very more people-centric type of policy in the state budget, like improvement and enhancing more of the social safety nets and all that area is something of which maybe the state may want to look at. And I don't want to sound very parochial, but I'm looking at if we can do all this, it will definitely make us Sarawakian different from the other parts of the Malaysia. And also, I think in COVID impacted type of situation that we are in, the entire economy is actually very much affected. And so I think the budget should consider a more spending type of budget, an expansionary type of budget that will be able to stimulate the economy, for the ensuing year. That it will, with the spending that the state is doing, then it will then help, other SME or other related business activities that can be benefited from that kind of spending. I noticed that it is ongoing, like what we saw in the PCDS 2030, which is a very visionary and bold type of target and strategy that our government and our CM has. And I think going forward, if we were to try to make the 2030 post PCDS a reality, the subsequent annual budget would have to be in line with the kind of goal that has been set and has been defined in the strategic plan. So in other areas that which I hope is that the government can also in their welfare side allocate more funds to feed and house and medicate and assist all those people who are really in need. And I think the important and challenging thing is while the state is willing to try to look into all the needs to provide that kind of aid, it is important that all these things that is given really gets to the targeted group, and that is a tall order, and that's a challenge whereby the government agency would probably need to try to be more efficient. And us, on our part, the Federation of Chinese Association would always willing to try to see how we can play our part to assist the government department or the agency. And it is in this kind of period and this time where we talk about giving back to the society, and even in respect of our all the NGOs and all that, we are all doing our part. So I think it is the right time that we talk about the government seeing that what are the things that can be done. Because I think in many other countries, even in Singapore for that matter, for their financial prudence that they have, they are all in this crisis, they all also dig into their own financial reserve to try to see whether how they can assist the people. Now, the other thing is, from the point of view of the business sectors and business owners, SMEs, all these commercial houses, in cases like this, the most difficult thing now is the challenge for everybody is to try to able to generate sufficient cash flow. Don't talk about profit. We don't talk about profit. There's all this, the audited account, we just put that aside. But I think it's important to generate sufficient cash flow to sustain the operation throughout this difficult time. I think the earlier effort of the government in various measures, like I think Dr. Abdullah would know that the government has paid the interest costs associated with the bank loans up to a certain amount. That has been a scheme that has been worked out, was greatly appreciated, and it has actually helped, and it was a great impetus for the business houses to able to borrow some funds to tie over the period. And I think also the state government has reduced a lot of costs in doing business, lowering utilities, lowering local government charges, and all these other direct costs to the people. But coming back to this, these are all the good policies that has been implemented. But I would still go back to what Dato' Latif said, which he emphasized on the productivity side and the efficiency side. Cost in terms of dollars and cents directly is important, but I think the speed of approval, the speed of processing, and all these things is at the end of the day also translated to dollars and cents. So if that can be made more efficient and more transparent, take for instance, just a simple example, without having to try to go into too great a detail. I mean, if you are to renew your licenses and all that, if you can go through the online renewal and the checklist as being done, and it saves a lot of people queuing up at the local council or local authorities. And all this can be done in a more efficient way. And I also did mention about some examples which I talked to during the time where we had our subcommittee of the SEAC. We say that all the councils and also the land and survey, they all have their bylaws and all that sort of thing for the property development and submission of subdivision and all that. And whether it is possible for the government to try to take a bold step, to say that, or the department to take a bold step by saying that if any applicants which is being submitted by the qualified professional, architects or engineer who knows the bylaw, and if it's submitted to the relevant authority, whether be it council or the land and survey, if they can undertake that they will follow the bylaws and also all the rules and regulation of the subdivision planning regulation, and if we do not hear any feedback from the relevant authority in 1 month, 2 months, or 3 months, can we be bold enough to deem it approved? I mean, that is the kind of thing of which maybe we can move forward to try to let the developer or anybody to try to have a sense of the kind of time frame or timeline that they are able to plan. So anyway, that is also one of the other area, but I still want to go back to the budget. I think it is also important that whatever the government has rolled out, to make it sure that it is successful, especially throughout this pandemic time. I think every country is facing it like what Dr. Abdullah mentioned, it's unprecedented. Nobody has ever come across this kind of thing. But different countries have their different ways of handling it, and they have a different local condition to adapt to it. But looking at Malaysia, I would still like to focus on Sarawak. I think I would leave the Malaysia side because it's too big an area to cover. I think Sarawak, on our part, we have actually done fairly well. In fact, I would say it's a very good that they have done on the vaccination side. I think that is something of which we can be proud of. But having said that, maybe it's due to all the various different variants, Delta variants and all that. Even with the high vaccination rate, I mean, we can still see the numbers is still there, and it's not actually slowly flattening the curve, so to speak. So the Rakyat has always been very used to talk about these numbers, how many people are being positive during the today and all that. And in view of all that, they are still have this kind of fear with regard to the positive cases on a daily basis. But having said that, I think the government is always very difficult to try to handle this kind of situation because it's a very thin line between life and livelihood. That is the kind of thing is very difficult to try to if you try to look too much on the health side, the business side will suffer. If you look at the business side, then they say that you're compromising the health side. So I think it is we really try to appreciate the government's position, but I think it's important for the people that whatever the SOP you may have, whatever MCO that you may have, if the people's attitude and cooperation is not there, I think it will be very hard for any government to try to be more efficient in rolling out this kind of thing. So I would also take this opportunity to appeal to all the people and to all our community to see whether do your best to try to cooperate with the government's effort. Coming back to the business side, I think like what we all know, the hardest hit is usually the tourism and hospitality. Some of them I have friends who have actually the hotel that he's building is half built, and now he's faced with number one, difficult to try to get the construction to get going, and also even if he completes it, the pandemic will throw all his projection and calculation off the window, that kind of thing. So all this, I think if there is any possibility, I think in the coming budget, all these areas, maybe the hardest hit areas, should be given a certain priority. Like temporary placement of staff and all that sort of thing is something of which I think we can try to also help the unemployment side. I mean, just an example that now if we have, I don't think we have a very high employment problem here, but if we do get to that sort of situation, some of these people, they are also willing, the government can also try to employ them on a contract basis to try to assist in the COVID program. You can roll out, you can try to, there are a lot because you call for volunteers. But if you are able to try to see if it's ongoing, there is a plan, maybe the government can also employ them as a contract workers to try to save all these people who are in the hospitality service and trying to do all this voluntary work would not be difficult for them to try to participate.
Yeah. So you have basically, Dato' Richard, you have also like Dato' Latif, you beat Dato' Latif a bit close. So it's also your comment. There's a lot of comment here and very positive and supporting your comment. What you have said, Dato'. So time flies very fast.
Yes.
Time flies, and And I would like to have another round of discussion with the panelists and giving them chance. If you notice that for the past, each I give 10 minutes, I purposely don't disturb them, let them talk and see what is their opinion. So the difference between physical and webinar being a moderator, for information, if in physical, I can always pretend to show my watch. So the panelist knows that. But in a webinar session, I can't do that, So, but anyway, anyhow, so far everybody have given their thoughts very well, and really appreciate very much. And basically, what I'd like to share from I'm same time from the state economic planning unit. So, what I see that the government have done at their level best to support the rakyat, the business community, and especially those in the B40s, to survive through this pandemic over the years. And truly that the reserve that we have actually being utilized to support this sort of economic disaster, I would say, to the state in particular. Obviously, it happens everywhere in the world, But on top of all this prudent management of finances and planning ahead in order to to address the needs of the people, and obviously digitalization actually is a way forward. Remember, if everybody remember that our Right Honorable Chief Minister introduced the digital economy in 2017. When he introduced this digital economy, digitalization, Sarawak Pay and whatnot, many are very skeptical of his ideas and saying that he's too visionary and nothing will need such a. And true enough, by the year 2020, the world is being faced with pandemic, and there you see the need of this digital economy and innovation, as what Datuk Latif described earlier. A way forward for us to fend these challenges that everybody does. So there you see, and when he come up with this PCDS, post-COVID development strategy for the year 2030, I believe we should have trust in his vision that by the year 2030, Sarawak will achieve, though there are some skeptics saying that 8% GDP is erroneous and whatnot. So I still believe that he have his vision and he's very proven. But what matters most is we as the rakyat, we as the people behind this plan, we must make sure it realized by adapting and the way we do things, especially as what Datuk Latif just now mentioned about productivity and efficiency. And even Albert mentioned earlier about how certain economy can double up in normal times. And I believe with the new innovation and way doing business, we can actually double or even triple our economic performance. So with that, I would like to see if any of the panelists would like to comment. And this time round, you are allowed to cross each other, meaning to say you can comment if you think that Albert is giving a wrong comment, that's so Richard can always feel free. So maybe to get the ball rolling, I would like to invite Albert to give your additional view, Albert.
Yeah, thank you. I think we would like to make this as lively as possible. I think yes. I really like the perspective given by different panelists. Right? If I maybe we'll start with Dr. Phua first. What I like about what you mentioned, I think, is that it's important about services sector. Because what happened if you look at the developed economy globally, right? Services sector is a very important part of creating opportunity, creating better jobs. So I think that is a very important area that I think the Sarawak needs to look at very, very carefully. How do you develop the services sector? I think the service sector is really like a byproduct. It's not a byproduct, actually. If you develop your agriculture, then you have your agriculture services. If you develop your manufacturing, you have your managing services. It comes hand in hand. So it is a very important part. I think we should really look at it very, very sort of carefully and making sure that the services take off. The other important point that we mentioned, which is cut across what Dato' Latif mentioned and Dato' Richard as well, the talent, right? I think, do we have the right talent? I think that's also important. If I be bold about talking about talent, right, is to say that if we don't have talent in Sarawak, what are the ways that we can attract talent that come into our show? Because that talent is also good to develop our local talent pool as well. I think that's something that I believe that state government should look at as well. Yeah.
So Albert, maybe I can add, we should be more receptive. Sarawakians should be more open to accept others to come to Sarawak to contribute. We have about 2.8 million population and 50% are actually in the working group. So meaning to say, we only have 1.4 million to help to develop Sarawak. We need more people. So this reminds me of how Chile, South American countries, that they transform the economy. They make the economy as open market as possible, accepting new people. That's how Singapore developed, I believe. Albert, if you correct me, I'm wrong. Yeah.
If you look at Singapore, probably half of the Singaporeans from Malaysia. So that's if they attract all the talent around the world. Singapore has talent from India, obviously. Even China, right? They have good talent coming from China and also in the European countries as well. So I sort of stop there. I mean, that is my view. I really like the bit about talent pool. I think the state government should be receptive to your point, Dr. Mohammed, to accept talent coming into our state. Yeah.
Okay, good. Very good.
Now, right? So,
okay. No, it's true. I mean, we need to be more diversified in saying our talent and whatnot, because we cannot create talent overnight. We have to import talents. That's how.
Doctor, the first thing that Albert must do is to relocate to Kuching.
Yeah.
we already feel
I'm just pulling his leg,
Okay, good. Thank you, Dr. Dr. Phua, what do you say, Dr. Phua? The service sector, what do you think, Dr. Phua?
Yeah, can you hear me? Thank you.
Yeah.
To me, if we want to reach this developed economic status or state economic status, the services sectors should be this engine of growth. But I look at this post-COVID-19 development strategy. By year 2030, the services sectors, I think is still below this 50%, right? If I'm not mistaken. Okay, by looking on this statistic. So I wish this part, the state, maybe my comment, the state should take note on this part, because you want to transform the economy for fast growing. Under this post-COVID-19 development strategy, it stated the GDP growth, it should be about 8%, if I'm not mistaken, that's 8%.
Yes.
Then by year 2030, it should be double the GDP from 136 to about 282 billion, correct?
Yeah.
So we look at the growth, because before COVID, the growth in the stats was around 3%. Okay, and now we have a COVID, and this COVID actually caused a negative 7.1% real growth on the state GDP last year. However, I noticed this post-COVID development plan, the baseline that they use from 2020, if I'm not mistaken, was about 3 to 4% negative. So the base year is slightly different already compared to what actually happens. So if you look at on that, whether we can achieve the projection from 4,000 over this ringgit per household to about 15,000 ringgit per household, maybe the state need to revisit on this part. And also the combination of the sectors. I look at it, the state emphasize on 6 economic sectors, manufacturing, agriculture, tourism, forestry, mining, and services sectors. And you have 7 enablers. So how can you in 9 to 10 years, okay, push the GDP to be more than double? That is a great challenge. Of course, with this digital economics, I think it's possible, but the implementation the policy must be in place. Like what the Lato, the Booth Dato said just now, I already agree about the business environment, conducive business environment, productivity must be there, efficiency must be there. When people come to apply for setting up a company, if you take 2-3 months, it's same like the university. I'm from the university. Example, when you have an international student apply to your university, if you take 2 or 3 weeks to process the application, that student might go to other university, because at the same time they might apply to several university, not only one. The investor also the same. They might look at a different location, not only in Malaysia, in Sarawak. They have choices in Kalimantan now, Balikpapan. They have choices in Vietnam, Cambodia. Those are emerging market. So the efficiency, the productivities, that is very important in any business.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Pa. I really totally agree with you to a certain extent that the only way forward for us to achieve the tall order of 8% GDP is through efficiency and productivity. Because when there is efficiency, it translates to a higher productivity. Higher productivity will lead to a higher household income. That's how I look at it from the perspective. So Sarawak, if you look at Sarawak, the only way forward is to increase its efficiency because of the number of population that we have. So that's where the innovation, data and innovation is being used as a platform for the PCDS 2030. And this is not an impossible numbers to achieve. 8% GDP growth or 282 billion is not impossible, because if we see China, for example, they grow even at provincial level, they can grow up to 12% GDP because of the investment in technology. And when we talk about, for example, what we call efficiency, I like to quote Bill Gates, efficiency, when he says that when you apply efficiency on already an efficient way of doing things, it will magnify the efficiency. But if you apply efficiency on an inefficient, it will magnify the inefficiency. So basically, what at the end of the day, therefore, our focus on development must be on sectors that can provide can lead to higher productivity. That's why I'm Prof. I have some reservation on tourism, for example. Tourism is a sector that is low productivity. So far, there is no developed country achieve a developed status by overemphasizing on tourism, for example. So there's no country in the world become a developed status based on tourism, because tourism is a non-productive sector, but it's good to have. It's good to have. I agree with you. It's good to have. So I think for Sarawak, we need to develop areas like where innovation and downstream or high value proposition for export. That's where we can achieve our developed state. Yeah. So for that, I would like maybe when we talk about productivity, efficiency, maybe Datuk Latif can add a bit more spice to it, because the way I look at it, he is so far the favorite among the viewers now. Datuk, over to you, Datuk. Are you on mute, Datuk?
Thank you, Doctor. You mentioned the word efficiency. I'm going to talk about efficiency at two levels. One, I think, of course, when we talk about efficiency, is always at the micro level. We're looking at enterprises, organization, firms. Efficiency, you have to look at their systems, their processes, procedures, the kind of capital that they use and all that, the machineries. But we always forget, we have the macro level. Do we have a robust system that is efficient, that can really provide a conducive climate for people to do business? That is why I mentioned about the need to have a good regulatory regime, right? And I'm happy to note that the fact is Sarawak already have what you call your state good regulatory practice. I think it was launched, 2 or 3 years back by the Honorable Chief Minister at the state public service celebration. I was there to witness. Now, it makes it a requirement for development of any regulation. They must have consultation that need to be undertaken. Consultation is whereby Gone are the days, government knows everything. You have to listen to the industry. Because industries are the one that is doing business. They know what are the burden that they are facing, what is efficiency is all about, because they've done also business elsewhere, not just in Sarawak. Okay, so to ensure that there is productivity, I think I call upon both sector, whether the public sector or the government, to work together, the public-private partnership. For example, I think one of the comments that was made in our chat box, where we need to be more transparent, in the guidelines, regulation that we put in place. I think Sarawak, you have what you call Sarawak Pemuda. It is actually more or less an outfit of our Pemuda here at the federal level. Pemuda stands for Pasukan Petugas Khas Pemuda Cara Perniagaan, or a special task force to facilitate business. It is a public-private kind of platform, and it is being co-chaired by public and private. So at the federal level, we have got the Chief Secretary to Government and also the President of Federation Malaysian Manufacturers. And in Sarawak,
in Sarawak, we call it Semudah.
You are right. You're right. I think a lot of these issues actually, could be addressed at Samudah. But whatever issues that we bring up, it must be done through evidence-based. It cannot just be anything that, we complain, we say, no, government have to look into this and all that. It's just like I got a call from MOF, the Minister of Finance who would like to meet up, with members of Pemuda. They would like to know what are issues, input that could be, taken into account. So we advise the Pemuda members, don't just raise issues. You must prepare. We need to have numbers. You need to have evidence. When you say that things are not moving, when you say that things you find difficult, what do you mean by difficult? Are there measurement? Then come up with some recommendations so that whatever decision that is going to be made is going to be a well-informed decision making. Decision can be made, with substance, facts, numbers, and we can even follow up to monitor, progress of that, initiative that we have agreed upon. Now, so we want to make sure that any regulation in place, it must go through the process first. We must engage the private sector. We should go and ask the private sector, what are issues that they have? And then we do verification before we engage with the government side. Now, I know some of our members are out there asking, what is it the government can do? As I've said, and you have put it rightly, sir, you have got Samudah. MPC is also involved. We are co-secretariat together with the state government. I think that is one agency there that is secretariat, to this Samudah. Bring those issues. We will do verification. We will study. And then when the issues is being brought up at that platform, the issues must have got all the substance so that we can then make decision there, not just bringing up issues and then we are not going anywhere, right? Now, at the national level, sir, if I may share, we have got what we call My Mudah. Malaysia, it stands for Malaysia Mudah. We want to make sure that people find easy to do business. You can log in into MPC website. It is a platform. You can raise whatever issue, all right? And we are going to assess the issue. We want to sure that issues are credible issues. You have got what you call substance, there is basis to it. Before we look into what would be the recommendation that we can put forward, for decision by our stakeholders. Now, if I may share also, when you talk about efficiency, people used to complain. They don't have access. They don't know where to go to complain, to raise, whatever thoughts that they have. I'm sure for some of you are aware, there is already a portal being set up. It has been there, since I think March last year. It is called the Unified Online Public Consultation Portal. You can go and visit MPC website. I think our counterpart at the Sarawak State, especially Samudah, is also aware. It is a portal where you can raise whatever issue. You do a consultation, it's going to be very transparent, and we make it a requirement later when you draft any of your regulation. I define regulation very broadly. It's not just law policy. It can be even licenses requirement. It can be process procedure systems. These are all regulatory tools that regulates business in any economy. So use UPC, raise your issue there, and even for government agencies, if you have any regulations you are developing, you must park your draft there. We make it requirement, at the federal level. Ministries and agencies are now using UPC for whatever draft that they have there. They have to make sure that it is also made accessible. So we have My Mudah to take up issues, and we have got the unified public consultation online, which is also there, to do the necessary consultation. So it doesn't matter, sir, you are in Sarawak, you are in London, you can still, share. So to me, efficiency is something that both parties will have to sit together. Government, they're going to look from their perspective, but business will tell you what difficulties that they're facing. So I think since we have got Samudah, we have to sit together, evidence-based, get all the right data, and then we look at whatever available options that we have, looking into cost, benefit of every each, and then whatever options that we are going to choose, that would be the best. So in short, regulatory environment is something that we require. If I may share with you, if you have a very burdensome kind of regulatory environment, OECD has done a study. Unnecessary compliance costs to start business. It's cost. I think business, they don't mind paying if you provide them efficiency, because they make a lot of profit. They don't mind. They can pay taxes. But if you're creating a lot of obstacles, they find difficult. But then you start imposing fees and all that. So I think we should be able to create an efficient system so that we can cut down unnecessary costs, because by doing away costs, you can help business also to increase their profit. So I think it should be public-private. It should be evidence-based kind of initiative, whatever that we do. Consultation is the way to move forward. Public-private also need to be there. We need to work together. And we have got, as I said, Samudah, we should utilize that. So I think the way to move forward, we have to work as one. Right? I mentioned about productivity nexus. We have got 49 sectors. God willing, under RMK12, we may be getting probably another 3 more sectors. And these are sectors led by the private sector, the government facilitate. So we are using the My Mudah platform. We are using the UPC platform. We are using also Pemudah. And I think that could be also the same approach which is going to be used at the state level. We have got Samudah. UPC could also be used. All right, we are more than willing to use that system. So that to me, I think when we talk about efficiency, we have to sit together to create the kind of a system that is going to be efficient for everyone, and that needs to be joint collaboration between the government and the businesses. We have to do it together.
Datuk, thank you. I also personally, I have text one of the MOF high-ranking person that one way to recover our economy post-COVID is actually to relook at the tax structure for especially corporate tax structure. So, for example, that we need to encourage our taxation system need to encourage recapitalization of their profit, so that they can, if they spend on recapitalizing of their businesses, then that amount should not be taxed or something. They will only be taxed on any profit they take out of the company, for example. So, and then he took it positively, and then he passed it to the tax division of MOF, and probably to advise the lembaga hasil to relook at this. So these are something that we can do personally beside the website that Datuk mentioned. But if it's good for us to have a platform like Semudah or Pemudah at MPC, to have this platform. So these are where the public can actually put up. But in my case, since I have advantage or I have access to certain high-ranking officers in MOF, I put it this way as well. But for others, probably we can use the platform that Datuk mentioned just now. Maybe Datuk Richard Wee from the what you call business side, especially. What you have to say on this, on what we discussed?
Doctor, I think I very much agree to what Dr. Latif mentioned with regard to the processes is something of which a lot of all these private sector here are actually facing many type of I mean it is the procedure. I just give some maybe some example. Most of the time that now when you are doing the property development now, one of the condition is that you need to try to do an environmental impact study, with a certain size, a sizable one. And then if you are doing that EIA, and one would have expected the EIA would include the the study on the water, all the other matters that related to environment. But somehow after the EIA has been submitted and then it was approved by the land survey, and then they were told, then suddenly they need DID's input, you need to try to get the DIDs. This kind of thing, sometimes I think on its own, all this regulation is, to me, I take it positively because it is good for the environment, it is good for the master plan study and all that. But I think it lacks coordination, If it can be coordinated inside the EIA, including the master plan and all that sort of thing, so it doesn't have to try to sort of double the job, so to speak. But I think this is part and parcel of the efficiency of which I think Dato' Latif was just mentioned. But I think for the state budget, and which is, to me, another one is the COVID focus and also people-centric policy that would provide the social safety net that is needed now. And then the other thing is this, I think I try to take it a little bit more positively with regard, even we are facing this a difficult time. And then I hope that, this COVID pandemic has a positive impact on our Chief Minister's PCDS vision. It will trust us to say that, look, we need to do something different. We need to do something focused, and we need to try to look at all the areas that, like one of the other things is our Chief Minister always talk about alternative financing, re-engineering, and all these kind of things are the new ways of looking at different things. I mean, we may be able to talk about what if we can help the state's finances and all that. Similar type of sovereign fund that you can be introduced, or maybe even you can, in the future, you can even monetize the government's assets more to try to make it's like a financial alternative, and all that. But I would just like to end here with a more positive note to everybody, is that I am very sure something good will come out of this bad situation.
Yeah, good. Thank you, Dato'. You point out very clearly on your expectation of budget 2022, and for that I believe when we talk about expansion, but expansionary budget that you mentioned, looking at it possibly, I would look at a deficit budget for this coming the year 2022 because the amount of money spent already to the rakyat, to the people and business community. And it's impossible for state to still register a surplus budget, like what we used to do over years. So this coming year 2022, I believe it might be a deficit and expansionary.
Doctor, I think to me, when I say expansionary, it includes all this infrastructural spending and all that.
Of course.
But I think at this, when you talk about a deficit budget, I think at this present moment, every country is having the same normal. And we are not the sore thumb that is odd one out. So I think this is a time that we try to do it in such a way that we just make sure that the allocated one gets the right funding that they need.
Okay, thank you, Dato'. So we actually have another 10 more minutes left, and before we go, I would like to invite if Tan Sri Hamid is around, to give his remarks, and maybe after that we have a photo session among the speakers. And then, but before I invite Tan Sri Hamid, I would just give one chance of everybody 1 minute to comment if anybody would like to comment before Tan Sri Hamid comes in.
If I may, Doctor. Okay, Albert, you go ahead.
Albert dulu.
Dato', go ahead. You go ahead. You start first. Go ahead.
Okay, Dato' dulu.
Okay, thank you, Albert. Thank you, Dr. Muhammad. I think now with a lot of changes, things are so dynamic. I think we have to make sure that also we are also, we must also be highly agile, so that we can maneuver the way that we do business, the way they operate. Now, I would like to call upon the authorities to have what we call agile regulation in place. I came across there are some regulation which you need to change because under our GRP policy, any regulations which are more than 5 years old, they are automatically subject to review, whether they are still relevant, whether they are still efficient. Now, we came across, there were some regulations that need to be changed because it involved law. It mentioned that 13 copies of documents, just because we are not going into digital, you only need one, you don't need many, that no more hard copies, it has to go to Parliament. Doesn't make sense, isn't it? Because why? Because that's the way how regulations were being drafted. So I think we have to make sure that regulations should not be burdensome, it should be agile. And a lot of things I think that we need to change. We should be using what we call of late a behavioral approach rather than using the arm of law, but more on changing behavior, behavioral science to ensure that citizens would go along and they would support initiative by the government. So in short, my fellow panelists and also the moderator, the way to move forward, we'll have to work as one. Let's review the way that we do things, regulations that we in place. We want to make sure that it is efficient, it is conducive. And technology, again, is a way to move forward. It is an enabler. And I think we can be more productive, but we have to continuously think new ways of doing things. So it is about creativity and innovativeness of our workforce. I put my feet to rest. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dato'. Okay, Albert.
Thanks. I think I'd like to echo what Dato' Richard mentioned about good thing will come up from this, right? It is unprecedented, of course, but it also offers that opportunity to press the reset button, to take a hard look at ourselves. How can we put our house in order using this pandemic as an opportunity? I think we need to bear that in mind. And obviously, business as usual is no longer acceptable from the government, also from the rakyat. We got to move forward as quickly as we can once the vaccination is in place, and then we live with the SOP now, right? Endemic SOPs. So that's one point. The second point, though, also is that I think from our perspective, professional firm, is that I think government in terms of communication to the rakyat is important. In terms of the policy that we are trying to do, the clarity must be there and get the rakyat buys in. I think that the working closely with the private sector, I mean, Dato' Richard, spearhead some of those organizations is important to disseminate what the government is trying to do. The collaboration between the government and the private sector, that collaboration needs to be much closer going forward. That will be my take. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Albert. Dr. Phua, one minute.
Okay, just now we mentioned about the expansionary budget, maybe deficit. To me, deficit is not an issue. Last year, the budget was about 9.8 billion, right, with a surplus about 180 million. Okay, if you use the right money in the right way, it will be never be issue. Use the money in a productive way. It can help to push out the economics. It can help the rakyat. I think the budget should focus on this, protecting the most vulnerable group. Social protection should be emphasized. Protect job. This job retention. This should be the immediate action. And also during the recovery period, create more job. And for example, we can support on this SME and micro enterprises in line with state this vision, this technopreneur, this data and innovation type of a business should be supported. Big data concept should also be forecast. And in response to just now, Dato' Richard mentioned about alternative financing. I would like to use the word this financial inclusion. Financial inclusion. So financial institutions should offer more innovative this product or solution, okay, services to the rakyat to serve these people from Sarawak, because some people they are located in this remote area. Far away. Some of the places right now still need to be connected, by waterway, timber road. So financial inclusion, how can we make everyone benefit, including individual and the businesses, they can benefit from this financial sector development, this economics development, so that they can access to appropriate, affordable, and also this timing financial, this product and services. I think that will be the other concern, financial inclusion. So to end, I would like to use the tagline of UNIMAS. We should try to create this fast-growing and sustainable this economics, sustainability for diverse and dispersed community. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Pua. And for that, I invite Tan Sri Hamid to give your maybe some comment or closing remarks for that, because we are already almost 12 o'clock already. Tan Sri Hamid in? Teresa?
No, I don't think he's in.
He's not, probably he's in a meeting somewhere. Never mind. So for that, maybe we can do a photo session, Teresa, that you have arranged.
Yeah, sure. You hold on, Tony. Photo session.
Photo session. So everybody have a sweet smile.
Okay, hold on.
Albert, where are you, Albert? Okay, Albert in already. Okay, right. Datuk Richard, where is Datuk Richard?
I'm here.
Oh, okay.
Okay, hold on.
Oh, I can see over there, that side. Okay. Where is Datuk Richard?
Yeah.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, smile. Freestyle. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Tony.
Okay.
So with that, I believe we end this session, and it has been very productive, and honestly, it's very lively. And these are some of the few occasions we managed to log in important people like Datuk Richard Wee, Datuk Latif, even Albert, for that matter. He's doing it on pro bono, so he's not charging anything. And Dr. Pua, one of those renowned economists from UNIMAS, and we are very delighted to have all of you in this session. And I hope this is recorded, and then we will use some of this input that we received today and put it up to our SFS for them to consider to be included in their 2022 state budget. So with that, thank you very much, everybody, and really appreciate your time and comment and the precious opinion that you have given and you guys shared with the general public. So far today, we have close to about 100 over registered, but there are others who are not registered on Facebook. So with that, I also thank the audience and for participating, especially on the comment chat box. I think there's so much plenty that I couldn't reply myself, but all are phrases to the panelists, especially to Datuk Latif, Datuk Richard, Dr. Pua, and Albert. So with that, thank you very much, and have a very good weekend, and please be safe. Stay safe.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you to our handsome moderator.
Yeah. Okay, Datuk. Thank you, sir. All right.
Okay.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Stay safe, stay productive.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.
Wan Pagi.
Tersergam indah megah, menjadi kebanggaan kita, bukti wawasan dicita, maklumat dan pengetahuan, penuh terhimpun harta ilmu untuk kita terokan. Pustaka Negeri Sarawak, wadah ilmu untuk semua, bersama kita manfaatkannya. Pustaka Negeri Sarawak, berteknologi dan berusaha, berkhidmat ikhlas untuk kita. Pustaka Negeri Sarawak. Tersergam indah megah, menjadi kebanggaan kita, bukti wawasan dicita, maklumat dan pengetahuan, penuh terhimpun harta ilmu untuk kita taruhkan. Pustaka Negeri Sarawak, wadah ilmu untuk semua, bersama kita manfaatkannya. Pustaka Negeri Sarawak, berteknologi dan berusaha, berhikmat ikhlas untuk kita. Pustaka Negeri Sarawak.